My name's Emily. Emily Ross. I write for a living, or at least I try to. Most wouldn't understand it as a real job, the whole hermit novelist thing. Truthfully, those skeptics might have a point. Most days the words don't come, my imagination hibernates, and all I do is rearrange the same dusty sentences over and over. But on the good days, the world shifts, characters rise off the page, and something almost like magic happens. The downside? You need solitude, a kind of quiet that's hard to come by in the modern world. So, I live alone, miles from the nearest town. My cabin is nestled deep in the heart of a pine forest. The isolation can be brutal, especially in winter, but there's a peace to it. I need that peace to think, to dream, to create. People have told me I need therapy, not isolation. Maybe, but therapy never helped with the dreams. Since I was a child, they've plagued me. Not nightmares exactly, more like vivid flashes of something else. Blinding lights, faceless figures, a heavy sense of dread that lingers long after the images fade. Doctors call them night terrors, but that feels too dismissive. No medicine, no meditation makes them go away. I've just learned to live with them. Tonight, there's a strange charge in the air, a restlessness. The wind whistles through the pines with a mournful sound, carrying a hint of rain. I light a fire and try to lose myself in my latest manuscript, but the words feel flat on the page. Giving in to distraction, I step out onto the porch. The stars are hidden beneath a swirling blanket of clouds, and a shiver runs down my spine. It's more than just the chill in the air. Something feels off, disjointed. Then it happens. A blinding flash of light obliterates the night. It's gone as quickly as it arrives, but it leaves something behind. Silence. The woods are utterly still. Even the wind seems to be holding its breath. Confusion sets in. That wasn't lightning. There's been no storm. My phone buzzes in my pocket, an emergency alert for a power outage. That makes even less sense. I rely on a generator out here. I'm not even on the grid. I should go inside, bolt the door, pretend this was all just a trick of the light. But curiosity wins over fear, and I walk towards the edge of the clearing. And then I see it. A faint bluish glow emanating from deep within the trees. It's hypnotic, and before I know it, I'm moving towards it, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm in my chest. Each step feels both inevitable and utterly reckless. The glow intensifies, my mind screaming at me to turn back. But it's too late. Fear has given way to something akin to desperate fascination. As I get closer, the glow resolves into a shape, hovering a few feet above the ground. It's hard to describe, fluid yet solid, like a swirling column of liquid light. It pulses with an otherworldly energy, and an eerie hum fills the air. I'm frozen in place, my breath hitching in my throat. A voice wells up in my mind, not in words, but like a sense of overwhelming presence. It's a feeling more than a sound, ancient, powerful, and utterly alien. A wave of nausea washes over me as a beam of light shoots down from the object, engulfing me completely. A feeling of weightlessness overcomes me. The forest floor fades from view, replaced by a kaleidoscope of blinding colors and disorienting shapes. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stops. I'm back on the ground, gasping for air, my body trembling uncontrollability. My head is spinning, a migraine threatening to explode behind my eyes. Gradually, my senses begin to return. The bluish glow and the humming have vanished, and the silence is broken only by the soft patter of rain beginning to fall. Disoriented and utterly terrified, I stumble back to the cabin. Locking the door behind me, I collapse onto the couch, my mind a chaotic whirlwind. My hand trembles as I reach for my phone, hoping for some kind of explanation, but the screen remains stubbornly black. Trying to rationalize, I tell myself it was a hallucination, a fever dream, but the memory of the light, the presence, feels too vivid, too disturbingly real to be easily dismissed. I manage to flick on the generator, the sudden hum of the engine oddly comforting amidst the deafening silence. I pace the small room, my thoughts spiraling into a frenzy. Something happened tonight, something beyond my understanding. I need sleep, I need to clear my head. But the fear coils in my stomach like a cold snake. Dawn finally filters through the trees, a weak, watery light. When I finally work up the courage to step outside, the world looks the same. But I know things aren't the same. There's a subtle shift, a lingering sense of unease hanging in the air. I try to convince myself I imagine the whole thing, but a glance at the forest floor quashes that hope. In the clearing where I saw the glow, the ground is scorched, the grass blackened and withered. Terror ripples through me. I was there. This was real. Sleep is impossible. The events of the night replay in my head like a broken record. Every creak of the cabin sends me jumping, my overactive imagination conjuring up monstrous shadows. I decide the best course of action is to keep myself busy, to exhaust myself until sleep becomes a necessity, not an impossibility. I focus on mundane tasks, chopping firewood, cleaning the cabin, anything to keep my mind from spiraling into the abyss. In the late afternoon, I decide to attempt a walk in the woods, hoping the fresh air and exertion will ease my anxiety. As I set off down the familiar trail, an uneasy feeling prickles at the back of my neck. I feel watched. It's ridiculous, I tell myself. There's no one out here for miles. Yet, every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sends a jolt of adrenaline coursing through me. I try to focus on the beauty of my surroundings, the vibrant green of the moss, the sunlight dappling through the leaves, but the nagging sense of unease remains. I push forward, trying to ignore the prickling on the back of my neck. At last, I reach a small stream, a place I often came to write or just to sit in quiet contemplation. But as I sit by the water's edge, I notice something amiss. There's a strange silence, no birdsong, no insects buzzing. The air itself feels unnaturally still. A sudden movement to my left makes me jump. It's a deer, standing about 20 feet away. Relief washes over me, followed by a pang of guilt at having startled the poor creature. But something's wrong. The deer is frozen, eyes wide with terror, staring not at me, but at something behind me. Before I can turn, a shadow falls over me, long and misshapen. Fear surges through my veins. I'm paralyzed, unable to even scream. A sense of pressure descends upon me, and then darkness. I awake groggily, my head throbbing. It's nighttime, and I'm in my bed. At first, I feel a sense of relief, convinced the terrifying incident in the woods was just a nightmare. But as my senses gradually return, the reality comes crashing down. My clothes are torn and covered in dirt, and my body aches in a way no nightmare could explain. I stagger to the bathroom mirror. In the dim light, I catch sight of myself and gasp. There are strange circular bruises on my arms, my neck, too symmetrical to be mere bumps or scrapes. The shock sends me reeling. I know I wasn't dreaming. Days pass in a blur of panic and confusion. I barely leave the cabin, jumping at every sound, every unexpected shadow. I try to research what happened, to find any kind of explanation. I pore over UFO sightings, alien abduction stories, anything that might offer a shred of understanding. What I find is more terrifying than comforting. Countless tales eerily similar to my own experience. I try to convince myself I'm going crazy, that there has to be a logical explanation for this. Stress-induced hallucinations? Sleep deprivation? but in my heart, I know the truth. They came for me in the woods, and I have the terrifying feeling they're not done. One night, I'm jolted awake by a noise, a low, insistent humming. The hair on my arms stands on end. I creep out of bed and peer cautiously out the window. It's back, the bluish light hovering above the clearing. My heart pounds against my ribs, and I fight the urge to run out into the open, to scream at the object, to demand answers. But deep down, I know that would be pointless, would only invite them back for another terrifying encounter. Instead, I force myself to turn away, to crawl back under the covers, hoping that if I ignore them, they'll eventually leave me alone. That night, the dreams come back with a vengeance. I'm in a cold room, bathed in a harsh clinical light. Faceless figures loom over me, their intentions obscure. There are needles, instruments, a piercing sense of violation. There's a blinding flash, and then nothing. The dreams always end the same way, with an abrupt fade to black, leaving me gasping for air, my body trembling with an icy dread. I spend my waking hours barricaded in my cabin, checking the locks obsessively, peering out of windows in perpetual fear. Food becomes an afterthought, sleep, a fleeting luxury. My once quiet world has shrunk to the size of a few small rooms. I'm trapped, a prisoner in my own home. I know I can't survive like this. I have to find a way out, a way to fight back, but I have no idea where to even begin. The only certainty is that every night the blue light returns, and the terror begins anew. The isolation is crushing. The silence, once a cherished companion, now rings with unbearable tension. I've tried to reach out to the outside world, but the power remains stubbornly out, my phone a useless brick. There's no radio signal, no cell reception, nothing. I'm cut off, abandoned. The dreams worsen, growing relentless and terrifying. I see my body, strapped to a table, strange probes and devices attached to me. I see their faces, huge, bulbous eyes, skin a sickening, translucent gray. The sense of their thoughts, their cold intelligence, sears into my mind. I wake up in a cold sweat, gasping for air, convinced that those inhuman eyes are staring down at me from the darkness of my room. The line between dreaming and waking blurs. Reality feels like a fragile illusion, ready to shatter at any moment. Time itself warps and twists. Days and nights bleed into one another, marked only by the appearance of that cursed blue light in the clearing. Each morning, I feel a little less like myself, the weight of this unrelenting horror chipping away at my sanity. Despite the fear gnawing at my soul, a flicker of defiance ignites within me. I refuse to simply crumble, to become another victim. In the recesses of my mind, a desperate plan begins to form. Risky, reckless, quite possibly insane. But it's the only shred of hope I have left. When the light appears the following night, I don't run, I don't hide. With a shaking hand, I grab my headlamp and the biggest kitchen knife I can find, its weight strangely comforting. This might be the end for me, but at least I'll go down fighting. I walk towards the light, my heart pounding a deafening rhythm in my ears. As I get closer, my senses are overwhelmed. The air crackles with an alien energy, and the buzzing reaches an unbearable pitch. Yet, I find myself pushing forward, fueled by either desperation or madness. I reach the center of the clearing, and there it hovers, that impossibly smooth orb of swirling light. A wave of nausea washes over me, but I plant my feet firmly on the ground and raise the knife. "Show yourselves!" I shout, my voice cracking with a hysteria I can no longer conceal. "Face me!" Silence. Then the light intensifies, its form seeming to shift and condense. A hatch opens at its base, bathing the forest floor in an eerie glow. My breath hitches in my throat. They're coming. A sense of unreality washes over me. Is this happening, or is my mind finally snapping, conjuring up this impossible spectacle? My legs threaten to give out, but I force myself to stand my ground. 3 figures emerge from the light, their movements strangely fluid, their bodies elongated, inhuman. Their skin has a sickly gray pallor, and their oversized eyes gleam an unsettling yellow under the harsh light of my headlamp. I recoil, a primal scream rising up my throat, but something stops me. Despite their unnerving appearance, there's an intelligence in their movements, a controlled grace unlike anything human. They advance toward me slowly, and I realize my raised knife is laughably inadequate against whatever technology they possess. In the face of such alien forces, my fight-or-flight instincts seem to short-circuit. Instead, a strange, defiant curiosity rises in me. I'd spent days, weeks, trapped in a cycle of abject terror. But now, facing them directly, something shifts. They are undeniably real, and the realization brings a sense of almost relief. The fear remains, a constant thrum under my skin, but it no longer controls me. One of the figures moves slightly ahead of the others. It's hard to make out details in the harsh glare, but there's something in those gleaming eyes, a calculation, an awareness, almost a curiosity of its own. The same mental voice I heard on the first night fills my head, not words, but intent. Study, observation, and beneath that, a current of something stranger, something that raises the hairs on my arms. Recognition? Before I can process this, the leading figure reaches forward. A jolt of fear strikes me then, and I try to retreat, but I'm too slow. Its elongated, multi-jointed fingers touch my forehead, and a wave of warmth washes over me. I gasp, not from pain, but from a sudden, bewildering deluge of images. They flash in my mind with impossible speed. My home, my cabin, seen through inhuman eyes. There's a strange sense of my own memories blending with an outside perspective. Emotions I don't recognize overlaid onto familiar sensations. Then, it's gone. The touch is broken, and the figures turn back towards their craft. With a smooth, mechanical motion, they retreat, disappearing into the orb of light. The hatch closes seamlessly, and the intense light begins to fade. I stand there, rooted to the spot, my mind reeling. In a blink, they're gone. There's only the fading hum left, and the lingering scent of ozone in the air. I collapse to the ground, my legs no longer able to support my weight. The knife clatters to the earth beside me, and I let out a shaky sob. I remain there for what feels like hours, trying to process what just happened. Were they merely studying me, observing? The touch, the mental connection, did they simply want to understand? The thought brings little comfort. I'm still their specimen, their subject. And yet, the abject terror that has consumed me for days seems to have lessened. Not completely vanished, but muted. My mind races 100 miles a minute, trying to find some semblance of logic. But it feels like trying to catch smoke. What did they see inside my head? Did I reveal anything that could endanger me further? Could they even understand the messy swirl of human thoughts and memories? Crawling to my feet, I stumble back to the cabin. I need to write it all down, to document the encounter while it's still fresh in my mind. But as I move through the familiar rooms, something feels different. My heart skips a beat as I notice a stack of papers lying neatly on the kitchen table. It's my manuscript, the novel I've been struggling with for months. The pages are scattered as though someone has been leafing through them. A tremor runs through my body. Did they read it? Can they even understand my words, my stories? I sit down and sift through the pages, my mind buzzing with a mix of unease and an undeniably thrilling curiosity. And then I see it. A series of strange, spidery symbols scrawled in the margin of one page, in an ink that seems to glow slightly in the dim light. My breath catches. It's a message. For me. But what does it say? I race to the bookshelf, pulling out every dictionary and reference book I own. But the symbols match nothing I recognize. Not any Earth language, not even any code or cipher I can decipher. Frustration claws at me, but underlying that is a deeper, more fundamental kind of shock. They communicated with me, tried to bridge the impossible gap between our species. And now I hold the proof in my trembling hands. Sleep is impossible. My mind churns, obsessed with the alien symbols. The words of my novel seem to dance before my eyes, overlaid with the mysterious alien script. My hand reaches out instinctively for a pen. On a fresh page, I begin to copy the alien symbols, stroke by careful stroke. There's an odd catharsis in the repetition, my hand mirroring the motions of an unknown writer. By dawn, I've filled pages with the strange, angular glyphs. Staring at them does little to illuminate their meaning, yet a peculiar sense of purpose guides my hand. Maybe this is madness. Maybe it's the only way to retain some semblance of control within this terrifying new reality. When the familiar blue light reappears that night, there's something different in my response. It's still fear, yes, but a fear laced with an almost defiant determination. I don my headlamp and jacket, clutching a notebook filled with the alien script. This time I'll be waiting for them. As I emerge into the clearing, they're already there, the orb of light hovering a few feet above the ground. The three figures step out, their movements still unnervingly graceful. I stand tall, heart pounding, and I raise the notebook. One of the figures tilts its head ever so slightly. Query. The mental impression rings in my mind. Emboldened, I hold the notebook higher, focusing on the symbols I so meticulously copied. I have no idea if this will even register as an attempt at communication, but it's all I have. A long moment passes, and then one of the figures approaches. Slowly, deliberately, it extends its long fingers and traces one of the symbols I copied. Correct. The impression comes, tinged with what I can only interpret as surprise. A surge of excitement cuts through the fear. Could it be that easy? Or is this a cruel deception? Yet something within me tells me they understand. Or at least they're beginning to. For the next hour, we engage in a strange, halting conversation. They copy symbols into my notebook, and I transcribe them as best I can. There's confusion, trial and error. Sometimes I misinterpret their writing, and a sense of frustration emanates from them. Yet, with patience, we continue. As the first rays of dawn begin to pierce the darkness, they retreat to their craft. The light fades, and they're gone. I'm left standing in the clearing, exhausted, but also exhilarated in a way I haven't felt in weeks. In the days that follow, the encounters become a terrifying routine. Each night, they return, and we continue our strange exchange. Each time, I get slightly better at deciphering their writing, and in turn, they seem to grasp more and more of mine. Through the cryptic symbols, a halting dialogue emerges. They tell me they're from a distant star system, travelers and scientists. Their interest in me, at first disturbing, is explained as an attempt to bridge the gulf between our species. They learn of my writing, my fascination with stories, and this fuels their curiosity. Is this common to humans? This need to tell tales? Can they even comprehend the concept of fiction? The questions pile up faster than I can hope to unravel them. There's also a chilling undercurrent to it all. With every word I decipher, I reveal more of myself, more of humanity. Am I leading them to something they might exploit? Is this a precursor to an invasion? My clumsy attempts at communication paving the way for something horrifyingly beyond my control? The fear never truly goes away, but it's replaced by a feeling of grim responsibility. They are relentless, and I'm seemingly their only point of contact, their guide into the workings of the human mind. My cabin becomes a frantic laboratory, its walls covered in charts, scribbled notes, and the ever-evolving translation of the alien symbols. I begin to think in their language, their angular glyphs invading my dreams. It's a blurring of the lines between captor and collaborator, and I often don't know which role I'm playing at any given moment. One night, as we stand in the familiar clearing, a new message emerges in their careful script. It takes me a moment to comprehend the translation, and when I do, a wave of dread crashes over me. They want to take me with them, to visit their world. The mental impression that follows is filled with assurances. I will be safe. I will learn. It's an unparalleled opportunity. The chance of a lifetime. The chance of 1,000 lifetimes. Yet, I only see the monstrous void of space, the chilling possibility of never returning to Earth, of becoming a permanent, isolated specimen. Terror battles with a desperate curiosity. Am I a coward, or merely cautious? Is this the doorway to understanding the universe on a grand, terrifying scale, or a fool's errand? A journey out of which I'll never return? The choice is mine to make, and the weight of it threatens to crush me. For nights on end, I wrestle with the impossible decision. The forest, once my sanctuary, becomes a prison echoing with my own frantic thoughts. The alien ship, once just a source of blinding light and terror, now represents an escape, or perhaps an even more terrifying entrapment. Sleep becomes an elusive luxury. Reality itself feels tenuous. The lines between my dreams, my waking life, and the communications with the aliens blur disturbingly. At times, I'm convinced I can hear them whispering outside my cabin, their inhuman thoughts filtering through the walls. Am I merely losing my grip on sanity, or is the mental connection growing stronger, invading even my solitude? The isolation, once difficult, has become a perverse form of protection. If I leave Earth, leave everything familiar, there's no turning back. I'll surrender myself entirely to their whims, to their technology, to the sheer unknowable vastness that separates their world from mine. And worst of all, what if my choice dooms humanity, providing these alien visitors a roadmap for exploiting our weaknesses? Yet, in my quieter moments, the lure of the unknown beckons with an undeniable force. The writer in me, the part that thrives on the strangeness of the world, yearns for this terrifying leap. To witness their world, their society, to understand the minds that built the craft that hovers so effortlessly above my clearing. It's a chance beyond any wild dream I could have penned. One morning, as the first tendrils of dawn paint the sky, I reach a decision. I pack a small bag, essentials, a few precious keepsakes, and my notebooks filled with the ever-evolving translation of their written language. It's a pitiful shield against the unknown, but it's something. When the blue light appears that night, I walk into the clearing with resolute steps. The 3 figures emerge from the ship, and for the first time I don't flinch. Decision? The familiar mental impression comes. I nod, and with a trembling hand I hold up my bag. Yes. One of the figures approaches, its large eyes unreadable even as I feel a probing touch against my mind. A query, a confirmation, and a tinge of what I can only assume is approval. They guide me towards the ship, and a wave of dizziness sweeps through me as I step through the hatch and into the swirling depths of the alien craft. The hatch closes, sealing me off from the world I know. The ship vibrates with a low hum, and then we ascend, the forest canopy falling away with terrifying speed. Below, my cabin shrinks to a mere speck, and a pang of regret strikes me. But then, the earth itself comes into view, a shimmering blue marble suspended in the endless black. The sight is humbling, breathtaking, and I realize there is no turning back. I'm a traveler now, unmoored and bound for the unknown.